Welcome into another live Patriots Q A. I'm Sierra Goodwill here with Evan Lazar. As always, drop your questions in the live chat. We'll get to as many as we can. Evan, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. Just talking about haircuts. My hair is getting down there, and and I'm very excited to get one on Friday. That's all I got.
I just took care of that this weekend, so feels weird. If you see me touching my hair, that's why, because I'm missing the extra length here. But we're going to start over on Twitter where we got a couple questions earlier. So Evan, who in your opinion will make a second-year jump from last year's draft?
Well, I think that this is one of those questions where a lot of answers could come out of this one, right? I really do feel that way. I think that the biggest sort of statistical jump in year two will probably be out of Nikhil Harry, just because he'll be out on the field more and he'll have more opportunities to put up more statistics. So hopefully, let's pray that Nikhil Harry is the guy that comes out of this with the answer to that question. I really like Chase Winovich's upside too, though. I think that last year he sort of laid the foundation for the type of player that he's going to be throughout his NFL career, and playing 30% of the snaps and get 5.5 sacks as a rookie. You pay a little bit more in your second year, and that number should go up a little bit more as well. So I look at Winovich, I look at Harry. I think Damian Harris has the opportunity to be a much bigger impact in year two as well.
And who makes the biggest impact from this year's free agency signings?
Well, I'm you know me. I've been a Damari Bird guy from this entire time, really from the beginning. And I'm going to stick with that. I think that Damari Bird's ability to stretch the defense, to win at all three levels, bring that speed element while also bringing a little bit more of a possession element to that position that they didn't really get out of Philip Dorsett, a guy that can create after the catch as well with the ball in his hands. They needed to add speed. They need to have more speed on the outside for this offense to thrive. So I look at all of those guys to, really lean on Damari Bird to be that guy, to be that burner. And I think that he should have the biggest impact. If it's not him, I'd probably go with somebody like Adrian Phillips.
Heading over to our live chat now, Brady wants to know, what players do you see doing punt returns and kick returns for the Patriots this year? I know we've seen Mohamed Sanu on his Instagram seem to be practicing this, but do you think he's actually going to have the role?
Well, he had the role at the end of last year, and I think ideally he wouldn't have the role this year again. And I think you'd like to add somebody that's a little bit more dynamic in that spot than Mohamed Sanu was. He did the job, but he certainly wasn't taking it to the house anytime soon, I don't think, on a punt return. So I would look at Gunnar Olszewski. I think he's probably the leader in the clubhouse after doing that for most of last year before he got injured. Obviously, Julian Edelman's always going to be in the mix at punt returner. When it's a big return, it's a big moment in a big game. They obviously will lean on Julian whenever they need to. But I really do think that if you're going to take a guy in the second round in the top 50, you got to give Kyle Duggar at least a chance to return some punts, especially with how good he was at it in college. Now, in terms of who's going to return kickoffs, I think that becomes a little bit more of a, do they go with a safe kind of possession guy like a Brandon Bolden, who's just a guy back there that can field a punt, that they can trust with ball security, and he gets what's there and isn't really super dynamic in that role? Or do they really want to get something out of that kick returner spot and get somebody that can return a kick to the house or flip field position? If they want to go that direction, then maybe one of the UDFA wide receivers like a Jeff Thomas competes for that role, or maybe Damari Bird competes for that role and they add some speed back there.
Nevin, look who it is. Our friend Alex Barth coming in to, just stir the pot a little bit. He wants to know your thoughts on the Madden trailer.
Well, I just am going to pray for my guy, Lamar Jackson. I know Alex is not as big of a Lamar fan as I am. Shots fired. So I'm just going to sit here and say that I hope Lamar dodges the Madden curse like some of the more recent guys. I believe it has dodged the Madden curse pretty good. And I just hope that happens. And in terms of the trailer itself, I didn't see it yet. So that's how me and Alex are on different wavelengths.
Two different wavelengths. Well, back to the Patriots. Shane wants to know whether or not you think Hoyer will get first team reps to start training camp, or will it be Stidham off the get-go? I know you said that you could see the Patriots with this abbreviated offseason and preseason going with Hoyer for the start for the first couple of games of the year.
My guess is there'll be something that big made out of who's the guy that takes the very first snap of 11 on 11s, right? I think that that's going to be a huge kind of moment is, okay, who's the guy that takes that first snap? But in reality, I think as practice kind of goes on and we see things, it's probably going to be a pretty 50-50 split, I would think, until somebody really starts to separate themselves from the pack there with Hoyer and Stidham. So I would say the very first snap probably goes to Stidham just to not create any sort of controversy or buzz that Hoyer is the quote unquote starter here. But I think that both of those guys will see about half the snaps depending on where we're at.
An interesting assumption here in the chat. I want to know if you agree with. It seems like the coaching staff knew that Brady was on his way out with drafting Harry last year, considering his skill set never really fit in with the style of the Patriots offense under Tom Brady.
Well, I don't know if that's entirely true because the two things that Nikhil Harry was best at in his college career were picking up yards after the catch, which is a huge part of about the Patriots offense. I mean, maybe one of the biggest things about this passing offense is creating after the catch, getting the ball in space to their skill players to let them create with it. You know, we've obviously had guys like Julian Edelman, we've had guys like Rob Gronkowski who are excellent after the catch. Those have sort of been the hallmark receivers here in New England. Outside of a Randy Moss, it's been Julian Edelman's, the Wes Welkers, the Troy Browns, the Deion Branches, the Gronks. Those guys have all been great with the ball in their hands. So I think that was the first thing that they saw with Nikhil Harry, is that he could be that sort of kind of yak monster. The second thing was the back shoulders, the contested catches, some of those things that Tom Brady has done a lot with bigger receivers. So I did see the fit with Brady and Nikhil, and I don't think that there was I don't think that was a disconnect there. Although moving forward, I think that there's some more kind of updated schemes, college style schemes, whatever way you want to put it, that they can get Nikhil Harry involved and make his life a little bit easier.
Well, you talked about Kyle Duggar's ability to potentially return punts for the Patriots this season. We have a question here on whether or not you think Kyle Duggar's versatility can break the Patriots' second round defense curse.
Well, that second round defense curse is, listen, there's some great examples of it and there's some bad examples of it. I know that most of the fans and quite frankly, most of them are busts, right? That most of them are Cyrus Joneses and those types of guys. But there also is, for every Cyrus Jones, there's a Patrick Chung. So it does go both ways, right? But I do think the biggest thing with the second round curse has always been athleticism, a lack of sort of functional athleticism. And guys like Jordan Richards, for example, was a underwhelming athlete, really not an NFL athlete at all. And that's kind of where the evaluation went awry. And now the Patriots have gone with a freak athlete in Kyle Duggar, who can do a bunch of different things, play different roles, and really impact the game in different ways. So there will be a role for him on the football team, whether he turns into a star or is just a serviceable player. I'm sure that they'll find a spot for Duggar and figure out what they can do with him.
And what defensive tackles do you see making the roster?
Well, I think that really the Patriots are expecting a ton out of Adam Butler this year. He's going to have to be sort of an anchor along with Lawrence Guy and Bo Allen and really kind of emerge as a run defender as well as a pass rusher, which we already know he's good at. So he's going to have to kind of develop into more of a 3-down player for this defense to hit its ceiling. So we're certainly going to go with Bo Allen, Lawrence Guy, Adam Butler. Those three guys are definitely going to be on the team. I think that it's a real big fight, though, for Byron Cowart, Bill Murray, undrafted free agent the Patriots picked up. Those guys will have a little bit more of like kind of a back end of the roster battle for training camp. But at the end of the day, I would think it's Guy, Allen, Butler, and Cowart, and maybe they sneak in a fifth there if they really like one of the undrafted guys.
Question here about the offensive style this season and whether or not you think it will switch up to be a more deep ball style offense with Brady. There were a lot of dinks and dunks, even though he did have the accuracy and the arm power. But do you think it'll be a more deep ball style offense this season with Stidham?
No, I don't think so. I think the Patriots, like many teams in the NFL, have found that misdirection and horizontal stretch are two of the best ways to sort of create offense in this league schematically, right? So just being able to go sideline to sideline with your speed, not just vertically up the field with your speed. Even the Chiefs, for example, they get vertical, don't get me wrong, but they love to send Tyreek Hill on what are called deep over routes. So those are deep crossing patterns across the middle of the field, 40, 50 yards down the field that are adding that horizontal element to the offense. So horizontally stretching the the defense. I think that's where the Patriots have always been at. I think they'll continue to be that. And really the deep ball comes from really having a demanding deep ball receiver in this scheme, right? It's Randy Moss, it's Brandon Cooks. That's when the deep ball has come out in the past. And I don't really expect it to come out unless somebody like that demands targets down the field.
Leon wants to know why the Patriots do not hire a defensive coordinator. We all know that Bill Belichick is very defensive minded, essentially a de facto defensive coordinator. They have Gerard Mayo, but why do you think they haven't nailed one specific person down?
Well, I think that really that role is often earned by Bill Belichick standards and not given, right? Now, if he had come in and, Greg Schiano, he was given that role because Greg Schiano has been a head coach at the college level. He's been a head coach at the NFL level. He's been a coach for 30 years. So he's got quite the resume, and you don't just hire somebody like that without giving him a title, right? So if they go outside the organization and add somebody like that, then that's where you get the defensive coordinator tab from. But when you're promoting within with a guy like a Steve Belichick or a Gerard Mayo, those guys have to earn that title first, like a Brian Flores did, like a Matt Patricia did. That's how it kind of becomes organic for that title to kind of go up the ranks and kind of earn it. So Steve Belichick called plays last year. Gerard Mayo certainly helped out a ton with the front seven, with Steve kind of worrying more about the secondary calls. So I think that there is going to be that same element, and it seemed to work for him last year. So I don't really see the big need to change it right now.
We have a question here from Nathan. Could the rookie tight ends, Devin Asiasi and Dalton Keene, take over the season? And I'm taking that as, could those two really be the stars and the focal points of the offense, maybe even more so than the wide receivers group?
I think that it's going to be a really fun year for those guys. I'm not sure what the production's going to look like. I don't think it's going to be off the charts, but just looking at the past of rookie pass catchers in the Patriots system, it usually takes a couple of years. Even for a guy like a Rob Gronkowski, he had double-digit touchdowns his rookie year, but he only had about 500 receiving yards. Aaron Hernandez only had about 450 as a rookie. So it really is going to take some time, I think, for the production to match kind of the eye test. But I do think fans and the team alike is going to be really excited about what those two guys can do.
We have a question here about the All-Decade team. Evan, did you check that out?
I did.
The East All-Decade team?
I did. I skimmed through it quickly.
So the question is, Matthew Slater's the greatest gunner of all time. Should he have gotten an honorable mention? And is there any shot that Slate makes the Hall of Fame?
The Hall of Fame is going to be tough because the Hall of Fame is all about your resume. What can you bring to the table? When you print out your Pro Football Reference page, what does it present to the Hall of Fame committee? How many All-Pro teams have you made? How many Pro Bowls? How many touchdowns have you caught? How many receiving yards do you have? How many rushing yards? How many sacks? How many tackles? And Matthew Slater is just not going to have that sort of tangible evidence. And you're really going to have to understand special teams, and you're going to have to understand the game of football and watch the games that he played in and watch his special team snaps and not just skim over those like a lot of people do, to truly understand what he brought to the table. And I'm not sure enough voters are going to put in that kind of work to be able to give that sort of evaluation. Patriots Hall of Fame, absolute lock. He'll definitely be in there. Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, that's going to be a big stretch.
Absolutely. And Leon wants to know thoughts on Redskins, Ryan Anderson on the trade block, any interest from the Patriots?
I don't think so. I mean, he's kind of a redundant skill set for them. So I would think that they have enough running backs.
Now, Isaiah Zuber, the rookie wide receiver, could he be an impact player, or do you see him as a cut?
Zuber's been kind of under talked about, I would say, because of guys like Sean Riley, Jeff Thomas. Obviously, we have that huge storyline with him. And then you got Will Hastings, who has the connection to Jarrett Stidham. So there's just a little bit more buzz with the other guys. And I think Zubar's interesting sort of skill set is his ability to win in tightly contested position and be able to kind of box out and use strong hands at the catch point and win like that. He was also a pretty productive kick returner in college, so maybe he gets thrown back there at times and gets a chance to return some kicks in the preseason and also in training camp. So maybe that's where they go with it. I just Zuber, I think those guys, Zuber, Hastings, I think that they have a pretty kind of uphill battle to make the team, quite honestly.
Absolutely. And I'm interested to hear what you have to say about Garrett's question. What is a realistic touchdown to interception ratio to expect out of Stidham this season?
Ooh, The one thing I will say about Stidham, and he did do this at times in the preseason as well, is he does turn the ball over a little bit. He had a really great ratio in college, and that's always box score scouting, right? You look at the box score scouting report and you see, okay, only threw X amount of picks last year at Auburn. That's not too bad. That's pretty good. But when you actually go and watch the tape, you see opportunities for interceptions or opportunities for turnovers come up in other parts of the game. But unfortunately, the defense didn't capitalize them, or fortunately for Stidham, the defense didn't capitalize on that chance. So I do think that he's going to be up there a little bit in interceptions. Mistakes by a young quarterback are going to happen. Other than that, touchdowns wise, I'm not really sure. I mean, we'll see what happens, how many times they actually let him throw it in the red zone versus running the ball down there. But I think that he will have quite a few turnovers early on, and we're going to have to kind of live with those growing pains.
We'll get to a couple more questions here. So if you have any, drop them in the live chat now. Let's see what we got here. What are your thoughts on Sony Michel this season? And do you think the Damian Harris pick makes him expendable after this year if he gets hurt again?
To me, this is a massive year for Sony, even though he's got 2 more years on his rookie deal. You're entering year 3. And at this point, you kind of are who you are, unless you're kind of, really kind of hitting it in the weight room or hitting it on the practice field or doing something outside the box to make yourself better, right? Changing up your entire kind of makeup physically, or your workout routine or something like that. So usually by year 3, guys are who they are. We kind of know who players are. So Sony, we kind of know who he is. He's a power back between the tackles, has good contact balance, good initial burst. He's not going to have that home run speed, but he's a guy that can carry the ball 20, 25, 30 times in a game and be able to handle that kind of workload and really turn out tough yards against oftentimes stacked boxes, 7, 8 guys in the box, and really be able to churn out those types of yards. And I think that there is value in that. There is value in allowing the Patriots to be an under center I formation with the fullback in the backfield and run those types of concepts where they're running the ball and then running the play action concepts off of those runs and marrying the whole thing together to create scheme. That's all got well and good, even though Sony's not necessarily adding a ton on his own to the carries. It's really mostly been the blocking. Whether the blocking's been good, he goes. If the blocking is bad, he is down. That's sort of been his kind of outlook throughout his entire career here in New England. But I think there is value in sort of what he lets them be offensively that maybe some of the backs on the roster aren't quite as, versed in that sort of role.
Brady wants to know what you think the Patriots will do after Brian Hoyer's contract ends after this year. He also adds that he hopes that they keep Hoyer, Stidham, and Jamar Smith on the roster for the upcoming season.
Well, Hoyer's an interesting case because he's got 0 dead money on his deal, $1.05 million cap hit. They can walk away from that at any time that they want and just cut him and save the money. So at some point, it is going to be interesting to see in camp if one of these young guys, one of these undrafted guys can outplay Brian Hoyer. Believe it or not, I wouldn't be shocked to see him cut like he was last year for Jarrett Stidham. But I think that the mentor angle is all well and good. I think that that's a very kind of important part of it to a degree. I do also think that it's been overblown at times, though, because you have coaches for that. You have Josh McDaniels, you have Jed Fish now, you have Bill Belichick, you have some of the best coaches and brightest minds in the NFL. I don't really think your backup quarterback needs to be the guy that's, kind of breaking down the tape with you and looking at the still frames on the sidelines and stuff like that when you have so much experience on the sideline to be able to do that too.
Leon wants to know one realistic trade you could see Bill Belichick making.
I don't know about player trade necessarily, like picking out a guy's name at this point, because really what we're going to find out towards training camp and once training camp gets underway is that we're going to be able to see, who's on the outside looking in other rosters and other teams and who's the guys that might be on the block and that type of thing. And right now it's kind of a silent period for that sort of thing. But we've talked about them adding defensive linemen. I think that they still could add a premier pass catcher at some point if they do become available. I don't think that that's out of the realm of possibility. Especially if they go through a couple of weeks of camp and they say, dang, our wide receiver spot still is really struggling out here. So let's go out there and upgrade. I would look at those 2 spots as places that they might look at.
Nathan here pointing out the connection between Chase Winovich and the Patriots' new draft pick, Josh Uche, and how they played together at Michigan, and they're both the same position. How much of a role will that play and their chemistry be this year on the team?
Well, I think the biggest thing about the Michigan program, especially that Michigan defense, is you get coached up there by Don Brown, who's one of the best defensive coordinators in any level of football, but he's also a pro style defensive coordinator. So he's running schemes at Michigan, especially in the front seven, the different types of blitzes, the different types of line stunts that they use that are very similar to what the Patriots are doing and what teams in the NFL are doing. So that's why people love to take players from that Michigan D, because they play a very NFL style of football, and Don Brown coaches it like a very NFL style coach would. So they're very familiar with it. Their expectations are very familiar with it, and they kind of understand the way that they're going to be used in the NFL. So I think that those two guys kind of have a leg up on the competition often because of that, in terms of just making an immediate impact as a rookie. So I think that Winovich and Uche are both guys that have a ton of speed, ton of hustle. You see all the athleticism in the world with them on tape, and they can really get after the passer. So I think it's going to be really fun to see how Bill Belichick kind of moves those guys around the front seven, moves them around the line of scrimmage, and gets them opportunities to rush the passer and get after ball carriers and make splash plays, make plays behind the line of scrimmage.
Well, thanks for tuning in to another live Patriots Q&A. If we didn't get to your question today, don't worry. We'll be back this week. We're normally back on Fridays, but we're moving it up a day to Thursday this week. So just 2 more days till we're back right here, same time, same place. So don't forget to tune in, subscribe to our YouTube channel at Patriots Press Pass so you don't miss the notification when we go live. And on Twitter, we'll remind you, as always, that we'll be here time and place. So drop us your questions there as well.